economic crisis is not over. It's coming. It might even hit before I get there. It might happen in 2010. But if it doesn't happen in 2010, 2011, or 2012, for sure. And that crisis is going to take the form of a currency crisis, not just a financial crisis. The value of our money is going to plunge. That's going to happen because so much money is being created to prop up this phony economy, to try to reflate the housing bubble, to try to keep financial institutions that are still insolvent in business when they should fail, and to try to keep Americans spending when they should be saving, and to try to finance this spending binge by the government because they won't let the market function. And when the dollar collapses, that's going to hit everybody in this room who has dollar savings and who works for wages in this country. Because what's going to happen is prices are going to go through the roof for everything that we need to buy, particularly things like food and energy, and interest rates are going to go sky high. And if we think that we have a bad economy now, imagine how much worse it's going to be when you have runaway inflation and double-digit or higher interest rates. The unemployment rate could be twice what it is today. And we're going to be in a real mess. And what is the government going to do? Are they going to do more of the same? You see, the real problem is that the government has succeeded in blaming the economic collapse on capitalism, on the free markets. That's not the truth. They caused it. Free markets would have prevented it. And I want to go to Washington to change that psychology so that people understand that it's the government that caused the problem, because more government isn't going to solve it. We need to do the opposite. Everything they've done so far has been wrong. They've grown government. We need to shrink it. The government is spending too much money. We need serious cuts. I know the gentleman in the court had talked about, cutting government. That's what we need to do. We need to abolish entire departments and consolidate others. We need real, meaningful cuts in government spending because the government is broke. The people are broke. We don't have the money to finance it. And the problem is, if you want to know why so many people are unemployed, businesses can't survive. First of all, Linda McMahon, mentions the fact that there's no credit there. Well, of course there's no credit because the savings are gone. We're broke. You can't borrow money that hasn't been saved. And the problem is nobody's saving because the Fed's got interest rates at zero. And whatever savings we have, the government's spending it. The deficit is over $1 trillion a year. Where's that money coming from? And then whatever the government doesn't borrow, they guarantee from somebody else. They're guaranteeing mortgages. They're guaranteeing car loans. They're guaranteeing credit card debt. How's an entrepreneur, how's a small business without a government guarantee going to compete with that? All that money is being crowded out. And if we don't have savings, we don't have capital investment. If we don't have capital investment, businesses can't grow, and no one's going to get a job. You can't get a job unless your employer has capital, and you can't get a job unless someone can make a profit. Right? I have over 100 people that I've employed. Linda employs a lot of people. Why do we do that? Is it because we're humanitarians and we want to give people jobs? No, because we want to make money. And we know that we make more money if we combine other people's labor with our capital. That's how we make a profit. But if the government makes it hard to accumulate capital because they're taxing it to death and because rates are too low and no one wants to save, and then if they make it harder for me to make a profit because of all the regulations I have and all the hurdles I have to jump over and all the taxes I have to pay, I'm not going to create jobs. They're not going to be there. We're not going to have economic growth. And if the government continues to do what it's doing, if they try to bail out this next crisis, when the Japanese stop buying our debt, and the Chinese start buying our debt, and the Saudis, everybody else, because they will, because we can't pay it back. When they stop doing that, and the dollar plunges, and interest rates go up, if they try that one more time, if Ben Bernanke tries to print our way out of that, if he tries to buy up all that debt because nobody else will, and no one in Washington wants to make the tough choices, then we'll have hyperinflation. They will destroy the dollar completely and wipe out the middle class, and that'll be worse than the Great Depression, by far. And that is where we're going. And I want to go to Washington now before it's too late. I got to stop it before that happens. And I know a lot of people, have run in the Republican Party, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room like me who have been very frustrated with the Republican Party, because a lot of people run and they talk the talk. They talk about shrinking government and getting spending under control and sound money and limited government and Constitution, whatever. But the minute they get there, that's not what they do. They act like Democrats. Because politicians are politicians. They say what they need to say to get elected, and then they do what they have to do to stay in office. And once career politicians get it in Washington, that's where they want to stay. And they play the game. They expand government. They don't shrink it. They go along with the party leadership so they can have the good positions, and they can fundraise, and they can stay in office. I'm not going to do that. And if people are going to support me in the Republican Party, I'm giving people an opportunity to vote for somebody, not against somebody. It's not the lesser of two evils. You're not going to hold your nose and vote for the Republican because you think he's not as bad as the Democrat. You can vote for me knowing that I'm going to be true to my principles. I'm not interrupting my career. I have a good business. I mean, this is basically the best time for my business to grow. And I'm willing to walk away from that because I think that I can help save this country from a disaster that's coming. So I'm not going to Washington just because I want to be there. I'm not going there to get along with the other politicians. I'm not going there to try to find a comfortable position and follow the Republican leadership. I'm going over there to shake things up. I'm going there to hold the other senators and congressmen accountable for what they've done. And I want to change what they've been doing. And I want to see if I can educate and encourage the other senators to put the country ahead of their own political aspirations. You know, they need to take a chance on not getting reelected. Right now, their only problem is, what can I do to get reelected? So they don't want to solve any problems. They just want to postpone them until after the next election. But every time they do that, they make them worse. We have to stop that mentality. People have to be willing to risk not getting reelected. You know, it's not terrible in the private sector. I mean, I've been there. I mean, it's okay to work for a living. These guys have to take a chance on that. And
However, I don't know where the oxygen's going in. Okay, I want to give you some question time. Okay?
all right. Anyway, I'll just open it up to questions.
Start in that far right corner where that
I've heard a theory batted about. I mean, you speak a lot about common sense, about business practices and
Did
things
you
like that.
stand so that we could all hear you?
I do talk quiet. That's what husband says. I do hear a lot of people talking about common sense. You're talking about a lot of common sense about business, and we have a small business too, and it is difficult. You exactly what Linda had said is happening in small businesses where everything is contracting, and it's so difficult. But I have heard a theory batted about that, I mean, you're talking about how it operates in Washington, how the economic policies are in place. And I've heard a theory batted about that they can't be that stupid. These people can't be this stupid.
I don't know. I mean, I've met some of these
But the
people.
theory is that it's intentional. And the reason why it's intentional is to make a new, just what the
Now, I don't think they're smart enough to have done this on purpose. I just
No,
think
but
they
the
wrecked the
theory-
country because they're incompetent, and also because they just care about one thing. Again, it's getting reelected. You have to look at what their agenda is. Their agenda is not to help the country. They're in office to stay in office. They're in office to get reelected. So they tell the voters what they want to hear. And so when we get a recession, what the government wants to do is promise a quick fix, promise a quick solution. But that's not what we want economically. We want to wring those excesses out of the system. You know, there is nothing the government can do. The government doesn't have any wealth. The government doesn't have any resources. All the government can give us is what they take from us. But whenever they redistribute wealth, they destroy it in the process.
Well, my question is, in this theory, is that do you think it's intentional?
No, I don't know. I don't think they're smart enough to have done this on purpose.
But I mean, like,
And I don't think they're evil. I don't think the people in Washington are inherently evil.
But I mean, common sense dictates. I mean, if you heard about how they were giving mortgages after the fact, you would say, what were they thinking? A common sense person says, how can you sustain a person with a low income and give them 125% of the mortgage with that prime or that whatever the subprime thing, and that it would go up?
There is no common sense.
Anybody with any common sense would say that's not going to work.
Look, I spoke at large conferences. If you want to entertain yourself, go on YouTube and go Peter Schiff Mortgage Bankers and look at the speech I gave in 2006 in front of 3,000 mortgage bankers in Las Vegas. Right? And I had arguments with everybody. Believe me, when I was saying how crazy it was to let people buy houses with nothing down, to give them adjustable rate and interest-only mortgages, people laughed at me. When I told people that real estate prices were going to fall, they said I was nuts. They said they can't fall. They're never going to fall. That was the psychology. Everybody bought into it. It was a mania. But the reason the country was so drunk is because Alan Greenspan liquored them up. It was that cheap money that made that perpetuated that mentality. If we had a Federal Reserve that kept interest rates higher, none of it would have happened. But all of that happened to help re-elect politicians, incumbent